All right, welcome back to DHR. Once again, I'm Tom Nixon, your host for today. With us again is Karl. We're going to talk about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies and the value of the investment, and how that works into an investment portfolio. Also with us today is Joe Fenwick. He's going to be our producer, and he's working behind the camera to keep us in line. So crack the whip and get ready. Now, Karl, you have been trying to invest in Bitcoin and crypto for a couple of years now, correct?
About a year,
all right.
Honestly.
Now, you and I have known each other a long time.
Sure.
Okay, let's just tell the audience that. And, we've been investing in gold and silver since, I was probably 17 years old.
No, it's been a while.
We used to listen to Bill Cooper on shortwave radio and Swiss America Trading commercials. I dream about still because they're, inculcated in my memory forever because I heard
been
so
a long
many.
Time.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of funny. But that's where I bought my first gold coin was Swiss America. Anyhow, we've seen the advent of Bitcoin and Ethereum and other cryptocurrencies that have come around like Dogecoin and Gitcoin. Sure. And I think there's a few others.
I think Walmart just came out with a coin.
Right. Right.
Walmart coin. I don't know what it's called.
And all the libertarians are just having a giant orgasm because these are all private, unregulated, ungovernmentalized currencies. And they just think, oh, this is the best thing since tulips. And I say that purposefully because in 1623, tulips were the craze of the century, and it wound up killing people. And so that's what I want to talk about. That's kind of what I think, and I could be wrong, and I accept I could be wrong. I don't think I'm wrong, but I could be. We all know that government has a monopoly on force, and government has a monopoly on confiscation.
Right.
And so when the day comes that they decide Bitcoin is illegal, it's illegal. And I don't care what your libertarian mindset you think it is. You can't bury Bitcoin in your backyard. The reason that there are so many gold coins from 1932 and before is because people in 1933 buried gold coins in the backyard. That's the whole reason that...
Well, the government confiscated them, but they didn't actually come and take them. It was,
Well, yeah, FDR made them illegal.
For 40 years.
By executive order, which I still don't understand how that withstood Supreme Court scrutiny, that a president could just make ownership of gold illegal. Sure. But it was from 1933 until 1972, right? When Richard Nixon, God bless Richard Nixon, made it legal to own gold again. So people find out that, I can no longer transact in my gold. It still has value.
Sure.
And the government couldn't just confiscate it. So they pack it up in a metal case or an ammunition box, and they bury it in the backyard, and they say, well, when the day comes that we can use them again, they'll be there and they'll still have value.
Right. Sure.
And to this day, people will find, I think in California, they found $1 million worth of gold coins in a ammunition box buried in someone's backyard.
Oh, wow.
And they still had value. Now, will the same thing happen with Bitcoin when the government comes along and says, we don't like that anymore, we're going to get rid of it?
Sure.
I don't think so, because of the digital fingerprint that exists with Bitcoin. And the fact that the FBI, and if the FBI can do it, the NSA can do it, the CIA can do it, everybody can do it. They can track it in real time as it's transacted over the internet.
Well, the concept, I think, is very interesting. The concept of crypto, the concept of Bitcoin, I think is very interesting. I think that it theoretically has validity, right? Theoretically. You can see the value from the theory of it, right? That being said, I think in practice, there's possibly a lot of hope in this space that perhaps is unwarranted.
So I look at it, and I know I'm jaded, but I look at it from the point of view as a lawyer. What is its legal implication, and what is its what is its utility?
Sure.
Right? So if I want to send you money digitally, there's two ways I can do it: credit card, debit card, right, from my bank account to your bank account,
right?
Or I can send you a bank wire,
right,
or electronic funds transfer, which are all essentially the same thing. A credit card transaction, a debit card transaction, an EFT, a wire transfer are all essentially the same thing. It's bank to bank.
Right.
my bank to your bank. And so the banks can record the transaction. The banks can
kind of like a title company,
Yeah.
in a sense.
account the transaction. The point of Bitcoin is that you're your own bank.
It's peer to peer.
Yeah, it's peer to peer. But it's nothing more than a wire transfer or an EFT from peer to peer.
In a sense.
Why do you say that?
Well, no, in a sense, I think you're right. I mean, it's basically it's a peer to peer versus, for instance, if you buy a house, sell a house, whatever, a piece of real estate, you have to go through a title company, right? That title company is recording the transaction legally, right?
Right.
They're transferring ownership in a legal, process. There's some of the, as you mentioned, some of the more libertarian-minded, folks, which I would think that I kind of lean towards that way as well in many respects, but not every, is that the peer-to-peer aspect is what appeals to people, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's, I think, conceptually that makes a lot of sense. I think, from a, non-governmental oversight, aspect and theory, that makes sense. And I think that there's some value in that, at least theoretically. The problem is that the fraud that exists is rampant, right? And so so what gives Bitcoin value? What gives crypto, any type of crypto value, right? And so what gives anything value? Limited quantity, right? And so one thing we were talking about is that there might be a limited quantity of Bitcoin, but there are unlimited amounts of other cryptocurrencies, right?
Which represent the same thing. They're still peer-to-peer wire transfers.
Sure.
That's all they are. Ethereum is a peer-to-peer wire transfer under another name.
Right.
And consequently, it becomes exceptionally difficult to achieve accountability in a transaction. For example, I have a credit card. I buy something on Amazon. It shows up in my office. It's broken. I don't like it. I can send it back and I can call Chase
Right.
and cancel the transaction.
Sure.
And Chase guarantees the value of my transaction.
Intermediary that's protective intermediary in a sense.
Yeah. Well, and none such exists for Bitcoin. And none such exists for Ethereum or any other cryptocurrency. So you buy something, your money's gone. You're never getting it back. Adios, see you later.
Sure.
Even though blockchain technology allows that digital signature to follow Bitcoin, there's no mechanism in place to pull it back.
Right.
So you are the victim of a scam. And even if you do go to law enforcement,
There's nothing they can do.
Yeah, we have learned there's nothing they can or will do.
And that's actually, it's interesting. That was the excuse that I was given by Coinbase, is that once it's in the blockchain, right, which is the excuse they gave, there's nothing they can do.
And now you're referring back to our other video where you were ripped off through Coinbase of your crypto.
Right.
And there's really no mechanism in place to get your Bitcoin back.
There is no mechanism in place. And so I was telling the story of a guy that a representative at Coinbase told me a story of a guy that supposedly lost $1.5 million about 3 or 4 weeks before I lost some money at Coinbase as well. The scams are rampant. So what gives value to this space? I think there's two things that give theoretical value. Is that one, there's something like 60% of Bitcoin that's held by, 5% of the holders or something like that. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's huge. And so, those huge holders basically.
These are the people who got in when it was under $10 and have held it all the way up to the point that they're now millionaires. But they're millionaires in a digital currency sense,
right?
Because they're only selling as much as they need to pay for their house in Puerto Rico
or whatever. Yeah.
Right. So they're sitting in Puerto Rico and they've got 20, 30, $40 million in Bitcoin,
sure,
but they have not transferred that
it's not
Bitcoin
been exchanged back to US dollars or
converted
other currency. And so, that value essentially it's, there's a huge chunk of the base of the value of Bitcoin and other crypto that's held with very few holders, right? And so if those holders ever decided to sell, they're creating a lot of the value. Right. So the $42,000 valuation of Bitcoin right now, or whatever it is exactly today, there's a big chunk of that valuation that's being created by those large holders.
Well, we've also learned that the FBI itself, or the Department of Justice, I should say, is holding $1 billion in Bitcoin alone. And that doesn't account their holdings of Ethereum or other cryptocurrencies that they've confiscated. But just Bitcoin alone, they're holding $1 billion. Now, question becomes, okay, the Department of Justice has confiscated $1 billion in Bitcoin. Are they going to sell it, transfer it, get rid of it? I don't think so. I think, in my personal humble opinion, Bitcoin is a beta test, and it's a beta test for a broader digital currency format that is going to be hosted by the Federal Reserve Bank.
Right. And that's already been floated. Of course, they're calling it FEDCOIN or various things. There's other countries also are coming out with similar crypto type coins that are official government currency, right? So China's already there. And so this whole space, it seems to have sucked in a whole contingent of the population that's then going to be used to that concept.
So in the process of this test, right, it's allowing the government to work out all the kinks in the system, right? So the Fed, the IRS, the Treasury Department as a whole, the Department of Justice as a whole, is figuring out how they can track in real time the blockchain digital signature of Bitcoin, and find where the organizations that are going to steal digital currencies are hosting themselves, whether it's India, Pakistan, Singapore, Russia, wherever, and they're being able, and what's funny is the scammers themselves don't realize that they are also a part of this unknowing beta test.
Right.
So when the Federal Reserve Bank steps in and introduces FEDCOIN, they will already have a blueprint of how to run a digital currency system that can protect all the transactions in the system.
Right, with the official FEDCOIN or whatever, right?
And so instead of, using dollar transactions on your credit card, dollar transactions on your debit card, you're going to be engaged in
digital
FEDCOIN transaction,
FEDCOIN, whatever. And that's actually something I was reading about. This actually is that the FEDCOIN or the digital dollar concept sounds great in some respects, but it's actually a nightmare potentially, because there's actually there's a lot of talk as to how controllable this is, right? Down to, for instance, imagine that certain areas of the country are more depressed than others in terms of the economics, right? So they could actually literally program more inflation down to the zip code level, less inflation down to the zip code level, down to the individual level.
Like even. You're a white male, you're going to pay more in tax.
Exactly.
Than this other person of color who your ancestors oppressed to this person, so they get a free pass, and you have to pay. It's a
social credit system.
That's what's coming.
This marries into the so-called social credit system, which of course China is the front runner in. And so when you marry those two concepts together, a digital currency with a social credit system, this is an utter nightmare.
I know exactly where it's going to start, because I've been formulating this into my mind forever. People who own electric vehicles are going to get a tax break. People who drive vehicles with V6 or V8 engines are going to have to pay more
registration fees, more gas tax, more whatever.
Right. And so they're going to incentivize certain behavior, disincentivize certain behaviors that they like.
Sure.
Or they don't like, right? So if they think that, Christians are bad, right?
That's right.
They're going to tax Bibles at a higher rate than, say, religious texts of other. I think it's going to become that minuscule in their control. They're just, because I think the people who run our country are crazy. And I really think that they hate certain groups and they prefer certain groups. And so they're going to tax certain groups at a higher rate. They're going to, think about it. They shut down churches. In the middle of COVID-19, they shut down Christian churches. And
limited the amount of people that could go or whatever. So limiting, basically First Amendment rights, without due process of any kind.
Right. And then they incentivize the churches through health inspectors visiting their churches to see how many people they were letting in. And so in an abundance of caution, churches just shut themselves down.
Sure. Exactly.
At the very same time, you go to the airport, you have to stand 6 feet apart while you're in the line getting your ticket. You go through security, you get on a plane, and then you sit 3 inches away from the person.
Other people.
Yeah. There were no empty seats. I flew during COVID. There were no empty seats. I'm sure that there were people. I flew on an empty plane. I flew to Mexico because my wife is Mexican.
Sure.
And, we go to Mexico constantly. I've never been on an empty flight to Mexico, and I've never been on an empty flight from Mexico. I mean,
Did you ever get COVID coming off the flight?
oh no.
So there you go.
But that's what I found so funny is we're in the airport. They're making sure all your kids are wearing a mask.
Right.
And everyone's
Well,
masked
you've
up.
seen the stories of 2-year-olds getting thrown off flights or whole families getting thrown off flights because the kid won't wear a mask.
Right, but you're sitting on a plane and you're taking a 2-hour flight to Mexico, and there's 45 people on the flight because it's one of those small Embraer jets, and we're all shoulder to shoulder. You know, it reminded me of being on a C-130, right, getting ready to jump out, and I'm like, why can't I go to church again?
Right. Well, it was
why is my church shut down? I didn't quite understand that, because I'm like, this is I'm closer to this stranger from Mexico that, you know, than I am anybody I sit next to at church. Right. But somehow my church got shut down.
It's all social control.
So I think that's what we're going to see is when FEDCOIN does come into existence, they're going to punish the people they don't like.
Right.
And I think COVID is kind of a warm up to that, and it's a conditioning to that. You know, and if you don't have the vaccine, you're going to get taxed at a different rate than people who do have the vaccine.
Oh yeah.
And you know, they're going, and at some point, and God help you if you buy a firearm with FEDCOIN, I bet you they make it illegal. Well, you can buy firearms all you want, you just can't use FEDCOIN.
Well, the concepts are,
and then you're done.
The concept of the FEDCOIN is being worked on as we speak. It's already in the pipeline. They already have the concept pre-built,
and they're already conditioning banks to do. Like, remember,
absolutely.
You know, General Michael Flynn's bank account at Chase was shut down.
Yes,
because he was on the wrong side.
Political views.
Right.
If you buy the wrong products and services, whatever. They just deperson you. Exactly. Your profile is saying who you are. How do you interact with society, right? Are you a gun owner, or do you vote the wrong way, quote unquote? Whatever, right? And those things are all going to be trackable and traceable, and they're going to be able to limit you at the point of entry into the financial system, into the economic system, and how you're going to transact.
Well, I know the things we are postulating on they sound silly, like, you know, like they're going to tax Bibles or something. But never in a million years would I have ever thought that people would voluntarily lock themselves up in their own houses and their own apartments and live in fear.
Or wear a mask in their car by themselves.
Yeah. Well, no, double mask.
That's right. In their Tesla.
Yeah, in their Tesla. Yet here we are, and I see people on a daily basis locking themselves up in their house because they are afraid of a virus, and they say, well, it could kill you. And it's just like, viruses have been killing people for thousands of years.
Sure.
And I kind of want to scream at people sometimes, you know, the German bullets that your grandfather was being shot at with were far more deadly than the virus you're afraid of.
Did they wear a mask, though?
Well, you know, there was no mask against the German bullet. So we could be free.
Right.
Sure. So we could have freedom. And I mean, going all the way back to the revolution and the musket ball, right? The musket ball was just as deadly. And yet, you know, my ancestors fought a revolution so I could be free, only to see my neighbors give up their freedom so easily over something so, and honestly, I'm just going to say it, superfluous. Well, and they're going to, hundreds of thousands of people have died. Hundreds of thousands of people die every year. 2.3 million people die in America every year.
Well, the flu is dangerous for a lot of people, right? Always has been.
Well, if you're 85, sure.
No, it's always been dangerous for a lot of people, or a number of people that are, so, I mean, the whole thing is a scam. It was a scam from the get-go.
If I'm 80 years old and I die from the flu, consider me lucky.
Sure.
Because I made it to 80.
Sure.
And the fact that we're going to, here's something else that's always confused me, right? They say, well, you know, you can get the COVID vaccine, you can get your booster, and you can still get sick. Now, if I got the polio vaccine, and then I got another polio vaccine,
sure,
and then I got a polio booster, and I still get polio, I'm going to have some questions.
Sure.
I'm going to be, hey, hold on. Maybe this polio vaccine's not working.
Well, there's actually, I don't know if you saw this, but the Pfizer CEO just the other day, somebody highlighted this in a video, and the CEO of Pfizer said in no uncertain terms, this is his exact words, is that the vaccine, you can look this up. He said the vaccine has limited to no effect, protective effect. But yet now, because the first two didn't, this is his exact words, now the third one will, right? I mean, this is absurdity.
Yeah. Well, what's sad is just you and me having this conversation, right? Will, the banks will see it, the Federal Reserve would see it, people in the community would see it, that we would get reported, and then
YouTube might ban the video.
Well, the bank would come in. The bank will come in and say, hey, you know what? You all expressed some vaccine hesitancy, so we're going to go ahead and tax you more. In fact, if you want to keep your freedom, if you want to be able to keep making videos, if you want to keep doing what you're doing, you need to pay an extra 10%.
Sure.
So go ahead and give us 10% of your FEDCOIN. And that's what people don't realize Bitcoin is the beta test for. I truly believe to my core that Bitcoin is not about freedom. Bitcoin is a beta test. It is a beta test to work out the kinks of a peer-to-peer system that will then be absorbed by the Federal Reserve System. And all of the mistakes and all of the hacking and the scamming and all of the issues that have arisen from Bitcoin will be solved.
Sure.
And then the Federal Reserve Bank will come in and the government will say, you know what, Bitcoin, Ethereum, all these other non-governmental peer-to-peer cryptocurrencies are now illegal.
Sure.
If people don't think that they can do that, they did it with gold. And that's why we started this conversation talking about gold. They did it with gold coins. They made gold coins illegal. In fact, people were arrested for trying to transact in gold in the 1940s and 50s and 60s until Richard Nixon made it legal again. That's what they're going to do with Bitcoin. That's what they're going to do with Ethereum. It is going to suddenly be illegal.
Well, you think about the whole crypto space is that you have to, in order to use it, by and large, I could exchange it to you and you to me, right? But what do you do with it from there? You can use it in very limited places, right? And there's been some use of it. And this is, by the way, some of these comments, some of these things that we're saying are going to be probably seen as pretty unpopular with some people, right?
I hope so.
So, and I think there's some validity to the technology for sure. I think that it's an exciting space in some respects, but I do think that as I've learned personally, it's very easily hackable. It's very easily lost, right? There are ways in which that technology has not been fully cooked yet, in my opinion. But
it's also very easily confiscatable by the government.
Right. Exactly.
So at the same time, we're saying it's easily lost. If the government wants it, the government will find it, the government will take it.
Sure.
And they will not hesitate a second to do it. And good luck fighting to get it back.
Yeah,
exactly. I think the government wins 99.5% of all asset forfeiture hearings.
Sure.
And what also people don't understand is the digital signature, and I want to explain this, the blockchain digital signature that goes into Bitcoin allows the Department of Justice to track its use in multiple transactions, in all transactions, actually. So assume for a moment you go to a guy to pay for your car to get fixed. And he says, okay, pay me a Bitcoin. And you pay him in Bitcoin, right? But it turns out that you're a drug dealer and you sold cocaine for Bitcoin. And now with that Bitcoin, you've paid your auto mechanic to fix your car. So now the auto mechanic has the Bitcoin, right? And it's sitting in his account. And the government arrests the drug dealer from whom you purchased the cocaine.
Sure.
And they tracked through you to the auto mechanic
that he received
the journey of the
Bitcoin.
The Department of Justice will step right in and tell the auto mechanic,
right, sure,
give us your Bitcoin. It's the proceeds of a crime. And he'll say, oh no, I'm a bona fide purchaser of value. And they'll say, no, this is a monetary transaction and those are identifiable proceeds of a crime. In fact, you provided a material assistance or logistical assistance to a known drug dealer by fixing his car that he used to transport the cocaine. And then
because the Bitcoin's serialized, it's traceable.
Right. And then the auto mechanic's going to sit there and go, I'm just an auto mechanic.
Right.
Well, I just fixed a car. Yes, you did. Give us the Bitcoin.
Sure.
And that's what they're going to do. That's the system they're creating.
Right.
And it's exceptionally authoritarian, and it's exceptionally easy authoritarianism because in the old days, the Soviets had to have a brigade of KGB agents to go out there.
You had to have force
and seize property.
Sure.
one FBI agent with a computer and a high-speed internet connection can do what 50 KGB agents would do back in the 1950s.
Sure. Well, yeah, and to see where this is headed, I mean, look no further than China, right? So look what's already happened in China. The social credit system, digital currency, those two things married together are really where this is headed. And so you can see that. I mean, look at China. I mean, if you have the wrong ideas, if you buy the wrong products, right? If you buy alcohol, for instance, or you jaywalk, or you this or you that, your social credit score goes down. Basically, you won't be able to buy or sell, right? So you can't, buy a property, you can't rent an apartment, you can't get on a train, a plane, a bus, whatever, right? And so there's just millions of those cases now in China, and it's well documented as to what's already happened there, and that's the fear.
So to those of you holding Bitcoin, I'd say this: sell it now and buy gold. And buy as much of it as you possibly can, as fast as you can, because that's the only way you're going to be able to transact with any sense of anonymity and any sense of libertarian principle, to not be controlled by the government, to have inherent value. In order to be free, your money must be free. In order to be free, your money must be uncontrolled. And the only uncontrolled money that's ever existed is gold and silver, but precious metals. Bitcoin is not a free currency. You think it is, but you only think it is. And the government can find it at any time, can track it in real time and take it. And they will. Gone are the days of being able to transact with anonymity. Everybody uses a debit card, a credit card. And of course, we all know now that the government can track your debit and credit card purchases in real time, and the banks cooperate fully with the government. We saw that with the January 6th protesters, where Bank of America ponied up information on every Bank of America customer that was in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, and they were able to, without a warrant, without almost any difficulty at all.
They did it of their own volition. They just did it proactively.
Right. Just wait until they don't have to ask for Bank of America's cooperation. They can just do it and not have to worry about that. And so we've seen the advent of this totalitarian state, and we're just starting to see the tip of the iceberg of how much they can control and snap back at people when you do something you think is constitutionally protected and you still have the FBI knocking at your front door. You think protesting in D.C. on January 6th was a constitutionally protected activity. It's not. Clearly. Because too many people have been arrested for it.
Scary precedents, for sure.
So we're just seeing, I think, the ascendancy of the totalitarian state, and I would rather not help it along. All right, but I'm sorry for what happened to you. I know that it sucks. All right, so hey, once again, thanks for joining us here on Dirty Hands of the Republic. We're trying to explore different topics that affect people in our community, and hopefully, in some way, we will help the law enforcement community understand what's important to those of us out here in the neighborhood, and you will be more responsive to the needs of the community, and in some way, we will help you. Once again, hit that like and subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks.